Hello everybody, this is Reza Durrani, Microsoft Business Applications MVP. Today we're going to quickly look at a new feature in Power Apps which is currently experimental, but the feature is called component libraries. Now first of all, what are components? Components are reusable building blocks. So what are reusable building blocks? So for example, in this scenario I have an app. I am going to kickstart this app. And this app that I built has something called as components. And I have built a few components which are reusable controls that I want to leverage across my various screens in the app. Also, I can take these components, export them and import them and use them in other apps as well. So for example, if you look at this app in action, if I play this app, one of my components is a left navigation component. So if I click on this, it's going to open this component. This is my component that I built. I have some other components here as well. Now these are my screens in the app, but if I go to components, these are the different components that I have built. I have a header component, I have a dialog component, and I have a footer component. So I have three components. And in the screen that we are looking at right now, we can see two of them in action. I have my left navigation. I also have my bottom navigation, okay, or my footer navigation. So these are components. Now in another video, I will actually cover how I built some of these components and I will deep dive into components. But right now I want to just talk about component libraries, which is a brand new feature. So I've got my components that I built in this app, but the thing is, if I want to reuse these components in other apps that are built across my organization, I have to go and export these components or export them and then import them in other apps. So the problem with that is that I don't have a master copy of my component. So for example, here's my header component. If I was to import this in a different app, the other app would get another copy of this component. So any changes that I make here is not going to reflect in the other app. Although the controls are being reused, but after that it's a separate copy. So the problem here is that I don't have a master copy of my components that all the apps across my environment can leverage. So now with a new feature in Power Apps called component libraries, what we can do is we can actually build these master components. So if you go to apps under make.powerapps.com on the left navigation, if you go to apps, there's a new feature called component libraries. Now in this scenario, I have not created any component library. So I'm going to go ahead and create one. I am going to call this my master components. That's what I'm going to call this. Now you can name this whatever you feel like. I'm going to click on create. Now the thing is, you can create multiple component libraries, and these live within the environment. So if I have multiple environments, they will have separate component libraries. And in reality, a component library is nothing but a separate app, but it just has the power of defining your master components. So very quickly, what I'm going to do right now is in this component library that I just created, I'm going to create something called as a header component. And in this, I am going to just add a simple label, okay? And I am going to quickly give this a size of 24, text size, center align this, give this a background color, change the color for the control label. And if you look at the component, the width of this component is 640. I don't want to hard code this, so I'm going to do app.active screen. That means whichever screen this component is added to, you have to add your components to screens dot width. Just pick up the width of that screen so it becomes like a fluid component. And the height for this component, let's say I'm going to hard code this at 60. Okay, and for that I need to also change the height of my label. My height of my label is 70, so let's also set the height of this to 70. So that's what I've done so far for my component, right? Here's my component, height 70, and here's the label. Now in components, you can also add properties, input properties, output properties. Because I don't want to hard code the text, I'm going to call this header text, just quickly creating a very simple component here. So I just created a custom property called header text. And for the label, instead of hard coding the text to text, I am going to rename this, or I'm going to update this to header component dot the header text property that I created. Now the header text property, if you look at this, by default has the value text. I'm going to just call this sample, so it just puts the word sample in there. Now what I can do with this is, if I go to my screens and my apps, I can actually just go and insert this component right here. And I can also pass a value to this. I can say home screen, right? And I can use this across all my apps by using this new master component strategy. So once I've built my component, I'm going to go and save this, and I am going to save this component library. It looks like it's actually an app. So I've saved this, and I'm going to close this browser window, and let me refresh my component libraries. I should see my master components right here. Now the next step, what I am going to take is, I've built my master component. So let's say I start building an app. So I'm going to go to new app. I'm going to create a simple canvas app again, and I'm going to use the phone layout for this purpose. And I'm going to skip this. So in my app, remember, components is an experimental feature. If you don't see it, go to file, settings, advanced settings, and one of the experimental features is components. Make sure it's turned on so you see the components option. Now normally what we do is we go to components and we import the component. Now if I do this, it will work, but the only thing is I will get another copy of that master component, right? But I don't want a copy. I wanted to refer to that master component. So in order for me to do that, what I need to do is, for now, this is what I've observed right now. If you go to the plus icon, the insert icon on the left hand railing, right at the bottom, there's an option now called get more components. If you click on this, this will load up all the component libraries available in this environment. Now in this environment, I just have one component library called master components. You can even cherry pick which ones you want. It only has one component right now called header component. So I'm going to pick this and I'm going to import this. Now, the moment I import this, notice once again in the insert tab, there is a new option that pops up called library components. And here is my component. So if I just click on this, it's going to come right into my app. And actually I can use this just like a regular component now within my app. Now the beauty is, this is not an imported component. So if I go to components, you see it's not here. Why? Because it's coming from the master, which is my master component. Okay. Now I imported this. I'm using this in my app. Let's say I'm going to call this my sample app, and I am going to save this app. Now, if I head back to my master component, so if I go to component libraries, and if I edit this, and let's say I make some change to my master component. Now the beauty of component libraries is you make your change in one location, and all the apps that refer to that component should get the updates, right? So I'm back into my master component library, and right here what I'm going to do is, just for demonstration purposes, I'm just going to change the background color to green here, and I'm going to go and save this, and I'm going to publish this. You got to save and publish, because I believe when you publish, it creates a new version, and that's how the other apps that are pointing to the component gets aware of the changes. So now if I head back to my sample app, and in my sample app, if I go to my screen, notice it has not changed, although my master component has changed to green. The reason is because what you need to do is you need to go back right here. If you go to the insert tab, the three ellipses right here has an option called check for updates. I believe if I go here, and no, I don't see it. So if you go back right here on the insert tab, the three ellipses, just click on check for updates. Now what it does is it checks to see if the version that was installed in this app, okay, and is there a new version of it available, of that component? And because it is, it's telling me that yes, there has been some changes that have been made. Do you want to accept those changes? If I hit the update button, so it's like an on-demand refresh, right? On-demand update. The moment I click on that, notice how the color changed. So that's the beauty of master components. Okay. Now this component that I built, so if I log in as a completely separate user right now, if you will note that this user does not even see that component library. So if he tries to build another, so if this user tries to build another app, it will not be the user will not find that master component because the master component has not been shared with that user. So because this is just like an app, if you actually go and share this with the other user, so in this scenario, my user is called, or my username is J Taylor. So I'm going to actually go ahead and share this component. It's just like an app. I'm sharing an app. So I'm going to share this with another user called James Taylor. Now, the moment I do this, when James signs in again, and you see the master component is available for James. So now if James tries to build an app, because I shared the component with James, James will also be able to use that component within the app. So it's an extremely powerful feature, I believe, is the components library. I just observed this in the last hour, so I went ahead and tried different things out. So these were the things that I've observed so far. I'm sure there's going to be more changes coming, especially when the component libraries feature goes into general availability. So please be on the lookout for as to when component libraries goes into GA. From what I believe, component libraries goes into GA. So let me try and get that link that I'm looking out for. Here's my link. This was the Power Apps 2020 release wave 1 plan. If you have not read it, please go ahead. One of the features is Canvas components, of course. It says general availability April 2020. So please go ahead, try these features, and do subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for watching.